All right, let's get right into it. If you're a personal trainer or even just thinking about becoming one, you need to know about the invisible lines that define your entire career. Today, we're going to make those lines crystal clear. Welcome to the Trainer's Guide on Scope of Practice. So, let me start by asking you a question. What do you think is the single most important line a personal trainer absolutely cannot cross? I mean, is it about pushing a client too hard? Maybe it's something you say? Think about it for a second. Well, here's a hint. The answer has nothing to do with reps or sets. It's not some line taped on the gym floor. The most critical boundary you have is a professional, ethical, and, you bet, a very real legal one. And crossing it, it can stop your career dead in its tracks. And that brings us to the absolute core of what we're talking about today, understanding your scope of practice. You can think of it as the official rulebook for your job, the thing that tells you exactly what you can and can't do. Now look at how specific this definition is. Your scope of practice isn't just some vague guideline, right? It lays out the exact duties and services you are qualified and legally allowed to perform. This isn't a suggestion. It is the hard boundary of your professional world. At the end of the day, it really just boils down to this: knowing what's in your lane. On one side, you've got your toolkit, fitness assessments, designing programs, giving some general nutrition advice. That's your zone. But on the other side, that's the territory of doctors, physical therapists, and registered dietitians. You've got to stay on your side of the line. So why is this such a big deal? Well, first and foremost, it protects your clients from getting bad, unsafe advice. But just as important, it protects you from getting into some serious legal hot water. Staying in your lane builds trust, it keeps the whole industry professional, and it makes you a credible, reliable expert. Okay, so enough about what you can't do. Let's talk about the good stuff. Let's focus on all the powerful, effective things you are not just allowed to do, but what you're expected to do as a certified pro. This is your playground. You're the expert when it comes to assessing someone's fitness with things like movement screenings. You're the architect of awesome exercise programs for strength, for weight loss, you name it. You are the teacher of perfect form, the spotter, and the motivator who helps people build habits that literally change their lives. This is where you shine. Now, let's carefully step over that line for a second and look at the danger zone. And I'm not kidding, these aren't just little mistakes, these are major oversteps that can have huge consequences, both for your client's health and for your career. Let's be super clear about this. A client says their shoulder hurts. You cannot, under any circumstances, say, "Oh yeah, you have a rotator cuff tear." That's a diagnosis, and it's not yours to make. If a client mentions they're on medication, you can't suggest they change their dose. These actions belong to licensed medical professionals. Your job is to observe and report, not to diagnose or treat. I love this quote because it just hits the nail on the head. It's such a fine line, but it's so important. You are your client's biggest cheerleader. You're there for encouragement, for motivation, but you are not a therapist. When a client's issues are deeper than just needing a push, your one and only job is to guide them toward a qualified professional. And this same idea applies perfectly to nutrition. You can, and you should, talk about eating balanced meals, the importance of hydration, healthy habits. That's general guidance. But the second you start writing out a detailed meal plan to treat a medical condition like diabetes or kidney disease, you've crossed the line. That's medical nutrition therapy, and that is way outside your scope. All right, so this brings us to the legal stuff that's behind everything we've been talking about. This isn't just about professional courtesy, we're talking about actual laws and regulations. Okay, your number one legal responsibility is something called a duty of care. It sounds kind of fancy, but all it means is that you have a legal obligation to act like a reasonable, careful professional and do everything you can to avoid harming your client. It's the absolute foundation of your legal duties. So what happens if you break that duty of care? Well, you could be found negligent. And negligence usually isn't one single catastrophic mistake. It's often a chain of smaller failures. You forget to check a piece of equipment, you give a brand new client a weight that's way too heavy, you look at your phone during a heavy lift. Each one of these little steps gets you closer to an injury and, potentially, a lawsuit. And beyond that primary duty, you've got other key responsibilities. You have to get informed consent. That means making sure your clients know the risks involved. You have to keep all of their information totally private. You need to keep detailed records of everything. And this one's a complete non-negotiable. You have to be ready for an emergency, which means being certified in first aid and CPR. All right, let's bring it all home. I really believe the mark of a truly great professional isn't pretending you have all the answers. It's knowing your limits and understanding when it's time to tag in another expert. That's your greatest strength. So, the best way to handle risk is to get ahead of it. This is basically your daily safety checklist. You start every single new client with a health screening. You never, ever skip a warm up. You progress your clients smartly. You keep your equipment in top shape. And you write everything down. This isn't just good practice, my friend, it's your professional armor. Okay, pop quiz. Picture this. A client you really like comes up to you and says they've got this nagging knee pain, and it just won't go away. So, what's your next move? Do you try to guess what it is? Maybe show them a few stretches you saw on the internet? No. Your only move, the only correct, professional, and safe move is to refer them out. You stop what you're doing, you listen, and you say, you know what, that sounds like something you should really get checked out by a doctor or a physical therapist. We'll work around it for now. Period. And that's exactly why the best trainers build a referral network. You should know the good physical therapists, the registered dietitians, and the sports docs in your area. They are not your competition. They are your partners in getting your client the absolute best care possible. And this right here is probably the most important thing to take away from all of this. Being a great trainer has nothing to do with pretending you know everything. It's about having the confidence and the wisdom to know what you don't know. So I'm going to leave you with this final question to think about. Are you going to be the kind of trainer who feels like they have to have all the answers? Or are you going to be the trainer who knows the right person to ask when the answer is outside your scope? Because that's the real difference between just being a good trainer and being a true professional.